Hello and welcome to the channel. My review of the Adeptus Sororitas, the Sisters of Battle Codex. Thanks to Games Workshop for sending it through to me. I'm going to do this one slightly differently from all the other reviews I've done so far because there's already been lots of releases and leaks of the Sisters of Battle. So most people who are really interested in this sort of thing already know what's coming. So in this case, it's going to be more of a broad sweep. And I'm going to give some of my thoughts and ideas behind some of the lists and some of the things inside this book here. But generally speaking, for those that don't know, you'll get a good idea of what to expect when facing a Sisters of Battle, or what they'll look like, how they'll feel on the tabletop. So finally, they're here. Games Workshop put off making Sisters of Battle in plastic for such a very long time, and it's a shame because they're such an iconic force. Religious fanatics in power armor with bolt guns and flamer weapons raging holy war across the battlefields of the 41st millennium is so 40k to me. It's the imagery in this book and some of the narrative in this book, it's bang on the 40k money. It is really grim in the dark in this book here, and so, some of the imagery, you basically, if you're 8 or 9 years old, you wouldn't want to show your mum it. It's proper grim dark. So I love it. It's very 40k. You've got many other IPs out there, futuristic Star Wars-esque IPs out there, which show a sci-fi universe which is brutal, or a sci-fi universe which is glorious and clean. Many different sci-fi universes exist, but 40k do the visceral, they do the brutality, they do the you wouldn't want to be there feel. And it shines. It comes shining out of this book. Now, for a long time, Games Workshop didn't want to do plastic Sisters of Battle, and it's probably based on their sales of all the metal models. They probably didn't think that it would be that much of a success, but with the launch of 8th edition and all the money they're making now and how successful 8th edition was, they've decided to go full hog and launch Sisters of Battle in plastic, and I hope it's a big success for them, because one of the things they could have done when they're remolding a entire range from scratch is add a couple more units in here. And they have added one or two. They've added a couple of units here or there, but they are versions of the units that we had before that were available in the old ranges. They could have added something different. Sisters of Battle in Terminator type plate they could have added, or they could have added another type of tank. We've got the Exorcists and Emulators in here, and we've seen them before, but they could have added another type of kit. Not that I'm complaining. I love the fact that Sisters of Battle is here in plastic. It's a glorious thing that they're doing, but they were redoing it from the ground up, right? So they could have added another tank, or they could have added another saint. You've got Saint Celestine in here. Imagine if there was Saint Sabatine from the Sabbath World's Crusades, from the Gaunt's Ghost book as well. Imagine if you fielded the Sisters of Battle and you could field two living saints, Saint Celestine and Saint Sabatine, side by side. That would have been epic, and it wouldn't have taken them much more to mold one more saint or one more tank or one more brand new type of Sisters unit. There is the version 2 of the Penitent engines in here and a couple of other bits and pieces, but they could have done something brand new. They didn't, and it's obvious why they didn't. For a long time, they didn't know if this was going to be successful. For a long time, they held back making plastic Sisters of Battle. And they've finally done it. They've finally launched it, and they're probably sitting there with their fingers crossed, wondering, is this going to sell, and how well is it going to sell? Well, I've got a feeling that it's going to sell very, very well. There are Sisters players out there have been waiting for it for a long time, and I've received messages and seen people online saying, oh yeah, they're definitely diving into the Sisters of Battle. Now it's available, now it's plastic. And so hopefully it's going to be big guns. Hopefully they're going to sell lots and lots and lots of them, and then they'll think, oh gosh, let's release another tank, let's release another couple of units here or there. They probably, when they redesigned it from the ground up, the cunning minds inside the game studio probably came up with a lot more images and a lot more ideas for units they could add to Sisters of Battle. They've probably got them on the back burner already, just sat there waiting for the sales to roll in and waiting for them to justify the release of these models to the sales department or the higher ups and say, look, we definitely need to sell these things as well. There's a market for them. So I hope it's successful. It's here now, And it is a good book. There's lots of flavor in this book, and there's lots of different ways of running sisters. A sign for a good codex for me isn't how competitive it is, but it's whether there are different builds. And in this book, there's 3 core builds you can easily build. You can easily build a horde army, sisters of battle troops. There's only 1 troop slot, and that's battle sisters, and they come in 5 to 15 squads, so squads of 5 to 15, and they're 9 points a pop for a single model. So a normal Space Marine is 12 points, and these girls, they're 9 points, and they hit on 3s just like Space Marines, and they have a 3-up save just like Space Marines. So 3 points cheaper for that toughness 3 instead of a toughness 4. What that does mean is you can hoard up pretty easily. There's a horde build in here if you wanted to. If you wanted to bring 60 sisters, that would only be 540 points, which gives you plenty of points left over in a typical 1750 or 2000 point list to add lots of the big guns or add lots of different threats here or there. So there's a horde build in here. There's also a mech build in here. You can bring tanks and Emulators and Penitent engines and Exorcists and things like that. You can build a tank build in here if you want to, and increase the toughness of your army. There's also a very fast attack hitting build here with Dominions, Seraphims, Mortifiers, Penitent engines, things like that. You can bring a highly mobile list as well, and all 3 of these builds are viable. A horde up list is quite viable. The fast hard hitting list would be quite viable, and of course a shooty gunline tough list would be quite viable as well. And then mixing and matching in between all 3 of those builds, you can do that. So there's different ways of building the sisters in here, which is good. Typically speaking, they're a mid-range army, with the exception of the Exorcists and a couple of other weapons. Most of their guns in here are 24-inch range. The vast majority of their guns in here are 24-inch range and less. Yes, they've got access to heavy bolters aplenty at 36-inch range. And yes, of course, the Exorcist has its 48-inch range Exorcist Launcher of Doom, Exorcist Missile Launcher of Doom, which is really epic. Yes, they've got access to some long-range guns, but typically speaking, a Sisters army wants to move forward and engage you at mid-range. That's where they're most effective. So typically speaking, if you're going up against a Sisters army, expect them to stay back with the 3 Exorcists, because they're just too good. We'll get to them, and be coming forward and engaging you at mid-range. They're a power-armored, bolter-heavy army. Now, the core abilities that they have are basically acts of faith. Not everything in this book has the acts of faith ability. Just the sisters have the acts of faith ability, because there's missionaries and preachers and things like that in the narrative that tag along to armies of the church. The sisters are the religious fundamentalists of the 40k universe, and they often have other people tagging along for the ride with them. But just the sisters, the key sisters units, have the acts of faith ability, which give them miracle dice. And you'll gain miracle dice at the beginning of every battle round, and you gain miracle dice if certain actions are performed throughout the game. You can gain 1 per phase, and you can use 1 per phase on any unit that has the acts of faith ability. So if you meet the conditions for gaining a miracle dice, and there's many different ways of gaining a miracle dice, such as killing units or units dying, or there's special war gear options that allow you to roll for miracle dice, or there's stratagems in here. Basically, there's many different ways of gaining miracle dice. And if you meet one of those conditions, then you roll a dice and you keep the result and put it to one side. So if you roll a 2, you've got a 2. If you roll a 5, you've got a 5. And that's your miracle dice pool. And then once per phase, and a unit with the acts of faith ability can substitute a dice roll for that miracle dice. This is very, very powerful. You do it before you re-roll, so before making any dice roll. So even if in your miracle dice pool you've got a bunch of 3s, because you didn't roll high when you met the conditions for getting miracle dice, it doesn't entirely suck. Because how many times in your life, how many times when you've been playing 40k that you really needed to hit that 3? Sisters hit on 3s with all their shooting attacks, and you really, really needed to hit that 3 with that melter gun or with that attack, and you've rolled a 2. How many times have you guys picked up a dice and spent a command point reroll on rerolling something? and all you needed was a 3, or even sometimes you needed a 2, or even sometimes you really needed a 1 because it's a morale test. Miracle dice allow you to say, nope, that dice roll that you're going to roll for, you put a miracle dice down and that's it. That is your dice roll. It's essentially a way of guaranteeing a command point reroll before you even needed to do the command point reroll. Of course, if you're in your miracle dice pool, you've got 5s or 6s, then those are really, really glorious as well. Those will be good for damage rolls. When you get a d6 damage roll and there's a 5 or 6 in your miracle dice pool, or a charge roll, you put a 5 or 6 in your miracle dice in your thing. Remember, you can only do it once per phase, so if you're charging in the charge phase, you can use 1 miracle dice to make one of those dice rolls on the 2d6 charge a 5 or 6. And then you roll the other dice to see how far you go. It's a very, very powerful mechanic in a game which relies on dice rolling. Being able to determine exactly what that dice roll is before you need to roll it is something specific and something unique to Sisters of Battle, and I think it's a very good addition. It's tough, it's good, it's a guaranteed dice roll, it's not entirely broken. Making sure that it can only be done once per phase means it's not entirely broken, and putting conditions on how you gain them and when you gain them mean that yes, you can build sisters lists in a way that you can gain extra ones as the battle progresses, but they're not going to end up with 30, 40, 50 miracle dice as the battle goes on, and you can only spend 1 per phase. Anyway, you can spend them in your opponent's phases when you're doing saving throws or morale tests or deny the witch tests. There's conditions on when you spend them as well, but it's all very simple, it's all very basic, and it's spelled out quite easily in here. And more than that, you can spend 5 points on Incensed Cherubs for just your simple Battle Sister squad. And Incensed Cherubs are another way of getting miracle dice. It's only 5 points, and you roll 2d6 at the beginning of a phase. One of them becomes a miracle dice, and then you have to spend it on that squad on that phase. And it's 5 points to guarantee that something happens in that sister squad. You can also put them on Dominions as well. Yes, Dominion squads can get them for 5 points. Dominion squads are fast attack guys. And they fast attack squads. They come in only squads of 5. You can't get them up to 10. But they're fast attack because they have a scout move before the game begins. And what makes Dominion squads different from Sisters of Battle squads? Well, Sisters of Battle squads can pick 1 special weapon and 1 heavy weapon. And Dominion squads can pick, in their squad of 5, can pick up to 4 special weapons. So you can give 4 of them Stormbolters or 4 of them Melter Guns, which is typically the go-to for Sisters players. And giving one of these squads the ability to get a miracle dice for 5 points it's just a nice little thing. I like it. So miracle dice. Sisters can pick the result of a dice roll as the game continues in each phase. They can only do this with units that have the Shield of Faith ability, which are the Battle Sister squads. They also have access to something called Sacred Rites. Now, to gain Sacred Rites, you have to have an army from this book only. If you're using the Imperium keyword and allying with Imperial Guard or Space Marines, you lose the Sacred Rites ability. Now, we saw this in the Space Marine Codex. To gain the access to the Devastator Tactical Assault Doctrines, you can only bring an entire army made from that codex. Well, to get access to the Sacred Rites, units with the Sacred Rites ability, which isn't all of them, it's just the Sisters, gain the Sacred Rites ability. And the Sacred Rites ability is also very interesting because you pick your Sacred Rite at the start of the battle but after deployment. So if you're going to an event, you don't have to write down on your sheet what your Sacred Rite ability is before you rock up there. You can play against an opponent, and then after deployment, before the game begins, once you've got an idea of what is in their army and what they're bringing, you can say, right, this is the Sacred Rite I'm going to enact for this battle. These are the chants and prayers and guidance of the Emperor that we're going to ask for to help guide us through this battle. It's glorious, it's very Sisters, and the fact that you can modify it on the fly is a great ability. It's powerful and I like it. But as I said, to gain it, you have to have everything from your army with the Adeptus Auritus or the Adepta Ministorum faction keyword. As soon as you stick an assassin in there, or as soon as you stick, I don't know, a knight in there, then you will lose this ability. So let's go through these sacred rites because they're very specific. You're going to use a different sacred rite depending on what army you go up against. The worst one is probably Light of the Emperor, which is when a morale test is taken for a unit with this sacred rite, you can re-roll the dice. And considering the other 5 sacred rites are quite good and quite versatile, and I can't see anyone really taking the ability to re-roll a morale test. The first one, for example, Hand of the Emperor, allows units to add 1 to the advance roll and 1 to the charge roll. So if you're bringing a Sisters list where you are aggressive and you've got lots of Seraphim or Mortifactors or Penitent Engines, then you're going to probably want to bring this Sacred Rite, which will allow you to add 1 to advance and add 1 to charges. But if you're going up against a gun line, if you're going up against a list that, say you sit down to play with an opponent in your local club, when your mate turns up and he's got a largely static gun line of Guard or Space Marine vehicles or whatever it might be, or Death Guard or whatever, you might want to bring this Hand of the Emperor Sacred Rite to add 1 to charge, add 1 to advance rolls, to have the ability to move up the field quicker with some of your units in the hope that you charge some of these gun lines. Not necessarily in the case of destroying them. You might want to charge an enemy tank with a Rhino, for example, an empty Rhino, not because the Rhino can destroy the tank, but because the Rhino will hit it and ring it like a gong, and then when it falls back, it won't be able to shoot you. So it's not just an ability that you'll use for assault-based lists, it's also an ability that you might want to use against gun lines to stop them from shooting so much. Spirit of the Martyr. When a unit with this sacred rite is destroyed, roll a d6 before removing the model from the play, and on a 5+, that model can either shoot with one of its ranged weapons as if it was your shooting phase, or make 1 attack with one of its melee weapons as if it was the fight phase. If the model has a damage table, use the bottom row of that table when shooting with that ranged weapon. So when you die, when a model, just a model on a 5+, it can shoot. So if you're bringing Horde Sisters, 1/3 of your models will be shooting before they get wiped out. If you lose a sister with a melt gun and it's right next to a enemy vehicle, then on a 5+, that model will shoot before it gets removed. Say you have a miracle dice in your hand, a couple of miracle dices, and one of them one of them is a 5 or one of them is a 6, then you can play that if you haven't played a miracle dice in that phase yet. So that model, your model with a melt gun, dies, and then you can shoot at a tank before you remove her. I think Tabletop Tactics did this rather spectacularly in one of their battle reports, where a sister squad moved up and fired at a demon and took a chunk of wounds off of the demon. The demon just about survived and then turned round in the following phase and moved forward and shot or went to charge the sister squad, and before they got wiped out, Beard used a miracle dice to make sure that the melt gun shot before it got removed, and killed the demon before the demon was able to get in close combat. So Spirit of the Martyr, when a model with the Sacred Rite is destroyed, remember this will work on your tanks as well. Before removing the model from play, on a 5+, that model can shoot. Emulators as well, for example, on a 5+, they're washing a target with Flamer Death. Is a nice little ability. So that one's a good all-round ability that I can see a lot of Sisters players taking a lot of the time. Aegis of the Emperor. When a Deny the Witch test is taken for a unit with a Sacred Rite, add 3 to the total. So all Sisters have a Shield of Faith ability. So all Sisters units have a 6+ invulnerable save, and they can deny the witch on 1d6. Now it costs, you've got to roll a 5 to get a smite. So it's only a 1 in 6 chance of denying a smite, because to deny the witch, you have to exceed the test that the psyker did. If there's any psychic abilities out there which rely on a 6 to cast or a 7 to cast or an 8 to cast, Sisters can't deny them on their Shield of Faith because they roll 1 dice to deny the witch. It's nice that their whole army with the Shield of Faith abilities gets to deny the witch on 1 dice. but only using 1 dice means it's rare that they're going to be denying things, and they're only going to be denying the lower end psychic power abilities. But with Aegis of the Emperor, adding 3 to that total changes things. That means they're denying stuff on a, they're denying stuff up to a warp charge value of 7 if you're adding 3 to the result. So if you rock up at your local club or an event, or your friend turns up and their list suddenly is Psycho heavy, say it's Eldar or a Demon or Tyranids, for example, then you might want to choose Aegis of the Emperor and have a +3 to the to deny the witch. Rolling a 3 for your Shield of Faith ability and then adding 3 to it, just rolling a 3 means you get a 6, which means you'll be denying smites if the person rolled a 5 for a smite. An 8 up, +3 up to an 8 to deny the witch, and everything in your army can do it with a Shield of Faith ability, remember. Every sister squad. I think the tanks have Shield of Faith abilities as well. 1 minute. Yes, they do. Mortifiers and Penitent engines don't, but yes, the tanks have it. So having a blanket 3+ to your D6 to deny the witch, that's a very useful ability if you're going up against a Psycho heavy army. Divine Guidance, when resolving an attack with a ranged weapon by a model with a Sacred Rite on an unmodified wound roll of 6, the armor penetration characteristic of that weapon is improved by 1. So an AP 0 becomes an AP -1. This is a good all-round ability, particularly if you're bringing a shooty gun line, I would imagine. If you're trying to stay back a little bit more, if you're trying to hold the midfield, then this might be a better ability, a nice all-round one to have. On 6s, automatically become an AP minus, adding 1 to the AP. So Heavy Bolters becoming AP -2, for example. A 6 to wound. And then there's one called the Passion, which is when resolving an attack made with a melee weapon and an unmodified hit roll of 6 scores an additional hit. So if you're going assault heavy, 6s to hit. 6s to hit, get an additional hit. So death to the false Abaddon kicks in. And those are the 5 Sacred Rite abilities. One's to increase your movement, one's to help you in melee, one's to help you with shooting, and the Spirit of the Martyr, that being able to shoot or fight on a 5+ when a model is destroyed, that's a good all-round one. I think that will be generally your go-to one. But having an ability to modify how your army functions a little bit, just a little bit of icing on the cake after deployment, is a nice ability. Remember to use this, everything in your army needs to be Adeptus Sororitas or Adeptus Ministorum. However, to use the orders, because sisters have Space Marine chapters or Craft Worlds or Necron Tomb Worlds, they have orders, order convictions, that are what they call. These are the temples, these are the chapters, these are the orders. Some sisters follow this way of war, some sisters follow have different saints and follow another way of war. So there's 6 different orders in here that you can pick, and you don't have to have everything from your army to get your order conviction. What you need to do is make sure your army is battle forged and have a detachment of sisters. So you could have a detachment of sisters, a battalion of sisters, and then you could have 2 fast attack choices of custodies, for example. Or you could have a battalion of sisters and get your order conviction and then bring along 2 Imperial Knights, for example. And then you get access to these orders, so long as everything in that particular detachment is from the sisters book. You can bring 2 different orders as well. You could bring a battalion of one order, and you could bring a heavy support of another order if you want to. So there's 6 orders, and the Order of our Martyred Lady gains 1 morale dice at the end of any phase other than the morale phase in which units with this conviction were destroyed. So what happens to gain miracle dice, is if you kill an enemy unit, you gain a miracle dice. But this order allows you to gain miracle dice as your units die as well. Remember, you can gain up to 1 per phase. So you should be gaining them in your shooting phase, in your fight phase potentially, and you'll be gaining them in your opponent's shooting phase and your opponent's fight phase as well potentially, because every time one of your units dies, you'll gain a miracle dice. In addition, you add one to the hit roll if one or more models from that model's unit have been destroyed in the battle. Now that is incredibly pokey because sisters tend to hit on 3s when they shoot, and suddenly hitting on 2s because you lost a sister in a squad. So Order of our Martyred Lady increases the hit rolls across the board for sisters so long as a model has been removed from a unit. And gives you the ability to get those miracle dice. And miracle dice, to my mind, are basically essentially free rerolls that you chuck the dice down and you don't spend the command point on. It's a very good order. The Valorious Heart, Stoic Endurance. When a model with this conviction would lose a wound, roll a d6, and on a 6 that wound is not lost. In addition, when resolving an attack made by a weapon with an armor penetration characteristic of -1 against a unit with this conviction, that weapon has an armor penetration characteristic of 0. You can increase that to a -2, ignores a -2 AP if you have an Amigifier within 6 inches with the tail of the Stoic. Basically, Amigifiers, they cost 45 points, and they're an elite slot, so you can take 3 of them, and you spread them throughout your army, and they have 3 different litanies that they can chant throughout the battle, and unlike chaplains in the Space Marine Codex or priests in the Chaos Space Marine Codex, you don't need to roll a dice roll for it. They're just chanting religiously, psychotically throughout the entire game, so these effects are always on, and one of them allows you to re-roll Deny the Witch roll tests. Another one allows you to add 1 to the strength characteristics of models within 6 inches. And another one allows you to ignore armor penetration characteristics of -1. So if you have this order and there is an Amigifier nearby, you're going to be ignoring AP -2. And it's a 6-inch range on the Amigifier. But if you haven't got an Amigifier nearby, you're going to be ignoring -1. However, the Valorious Heart, it's quite clear that if you're taking the order of the Valorious Heart, what this order does is make your sisters a little bit more resilient. On a 6, they've got a 6-up shrug, a 6-up feel no pain, and they ignore AP -1. So you're going to be taking Amigifiers for 45 points each. You're going to be taking a couple of them and spreading them in and amongst your troops and ignoring the AP -2. In a game where AP modifiers are everything, in a game where it's all about the strength value AP of the weapon, be it shooting or close combat to wipe out units, having something that ignores a -1 or -2 does work. We've seen it in Salamander's lists. You can see it when you're shooting units with invulnerable saves with a 3-up flat up, 3-up invulnerable saves. It kind of affects one of the core rules of the game, which is armor value and the AP modifier. That's one of the core rules of 8th edition. So having something that affects that core rule, ignoring -1s or -2s, does significantly increase the resilience of your army. Valorious Heart would be there, particularly if you're going Horde Sisters. Say you're bringing those 60 sisters for 540 points. That's without upgrades, obviously. But if you're bringing 60 sisters along and giving them all melt guns and multi-melters and sticking an Imagifier in there with them and ignoring AP -2 and giving them a 6-up shrug, you're going to be sticking around a lot longer than a toughness 3 army should be sticking around there for. It's going to be very effective, particularly if you stick them in terrain. You're going to have a 2-up save from their normal 3-up save. So the Valorious Heart, a way of making your army a bit more resilient. If you're new to Sisters, that's probably the best way to go. It'll be having a bit more resilience while you're working out your lists, while you're working out your armies, and you're working out what works best for you with your playstyle, in your meta, in your group, what units you need to bring. Having something like that is probably the best way to go when you started playing Sisters. The Order of the Bloody Rose are quick to anger. When resolving an attack made with a melee weapon or a pistol weapon by a model with this conviction, that weapon's armor penetration characteristic is improved by 1 for that attack, e.g. AP 0 becomes AP -1. In addition, add 1 to the attack's characteristics of a model with this conviction during any turn in which it made a charge move, was charged, or performed a heroic intervention. So, yeah, add 1 to attacks when you charge. Now, in this book, we have something called Mortifiers and Penitent Engines. Mortifiers and Penitent Engines are like mini dreadnoughts, or how to explain, mini demons. They're basically toughness 5, 5 wound, 4 up save creatures, sisters that are strapped into machines and sent on a rampaging killing spree. Penitent Engines have a 7-inch move at toughness 5, 5 wounds with a 4 up save. And Mortifiers have a 9-inch move at toughness 5, 5 wounds with a 4 up save. So one is a bit quicker than the other, but they both have access to something called Penitent Flails. Penitent Flails are essentially strength 6 -2, 1 damage. But for every attack that you have, you gain 3 hit rolls if you're using Penitent Flails. They can use Penitent Bud's Blades, which are strength 8, so you're going to go, you can, on these mini creatures that you're charging up the tail. I know they're not mini creatures, but I'm trying to explain it to people who may not have seen a Penitent Engine or Mortifier before. They're mini monstrous creatures charging forward. You can make them strength 8. You can give them 4 attacks, and with this order, give them 5 attacks and send them charging up the table, hitting at strength 8 -3, 2 damage. Or instead of strength 8 with 4 or 5 attacks, you can give them Penitent Flails, and for every attack they get 3 attacks. So with this order, one Penitent Engine will have 18 attacks. One Mortifier will have 18 attacks. Mortifiers hit on 3s, Penitent Engines hit on 4s, but they have Zealot, so they re-roll all hits when they charge. 18 attacks on the charge, re-rolling all hits, and their AP increases because they charge. The AP of the value is improved by 1. So you're looking at 18 attacks, hitting on 4s, re-rolling, strength 6, AP -3, 1 damage. It is absolutely brutal. And they both cost 56 points each. Penitent Engines can come in up to units of 4, Mortifiers can come in up to units of 6. But just having 3 of them would cost you 168 points to have 3 of these guys running up the table. To have 6 of these guys running up the table, 336 points. That's not bad for 6 of them, 2 units of 3 charging up the table at toughness 5. I know they've only got 5. I know they've only got a 4 up save, but at toughness 5 with 5 wounds, some of them are going to live. And the Mortifiers ignore wounds on a 6 up. Penitent Engines ignore wounds on a 5 up. So 336 points charging up the table, ignoring wounds on a 6 or a 5. I don't know which one to bring. Mortifiers are 9, movement 9. Penitent Engines are movement 7. Mortifiers come with heavy bolters, and if you move them, they count as assault weapons. So they're moving and shooting their heavy bolters as they're moving up the table. But that's not where the glory happens in the heavy bolter shots. The glory happens in charging in and punching stuff. Penitent Engine, so you probably don't even want to use the heavy bolters. You probably want to advance and advance and advance, but they can move and fire. So Mortifiers are a curious one. Yes, they're quicker, but they've got 2 heavy bolters each. And so that means a unit of 9 is chucking out 6 times 9 is 15, is chucking out a chunk of heavy bolter shots. Penitent Engines are only movement 7, but they've got heavy flamers. So heavy flamers are good if you get charged. And they're good before you go flying in there. And because they're heavy flamers, they're only movement 7, but you're going to be advancing until you get up there and are able to start laying on the smackdown. And also Penitent Engines ignore wounds on a 5 up rather than ignore wounds on a 6 up. So 336 points, I'd definitely get 2 of these guys. At 4 attacks, I probably wouldn't give them the Penitent Buzz Blade, so they're hitting at strength 8. I would give them the 2 Penitent Flails, so that gets them to 5 attacks, and with this order gets them to 6 attacks, and that gives you those 18 attacks, hitting on 3s or 4s, at AP -3, strength 6. It's not too expensive. For example, we already said that 60 sisters with stripped down without any additions to them is only 540 points. 6 of these engines charging up the table is 336 points. That's only 900 points right there. A Canoness, which is your typical go-to HQ character, a Canoness allows you to reroll hit rolls of 1. So that's your captain equivalent, your Chaos Lord equivalent. A Canoness stripped down is 45 points. So 60 sisters and 6 penitent engines without any upgrades or any toys. That's 1,000 points right there. And that leaves you 8,000 points left over to still bring in a lot of guns, or to still upgrade those sisters, or still bring in Celestine, or still bring in Seraphim. It's a very well costed book. There's definitely different builds. I talked about it before, but it definitely gets you grey matter thinking when you start delving into this book. Anyway, that's the order of the, the Order of the Bloody Rose. They get very bloody. You want to bring Mortifiers or Penitent Engines. Preferably, even, you could bring your Seraphim and your and the elite choice of the jumpy dudes, the jumpy sisters jumping around all over the place. There's Movement 12 sisters in here, 2 versions of. There's the Seraphim squad. You can take them in units of 5 to 10, and they are assault infantry with the jump pack fly keyword. We've seen these before. These are sisters with bolt pistols or hand flamers zipping around all over the place, and they're a harassment force. They're not very good at taking out elite or hard targets, but they're a way of adding speed to a sister's army and zipping up the flanks or tagging vehicles in the backfield, preventing them from shooting. So the Seraphim we've seen for a while, but you've also got Sepharim now, and Sepharim are an elite squad. You can only bring them in units of 5, and they come with power swords and bolt pistols. Now it seems a bit weird. Why would you put a power sword and bolt pistol squad on a Sisters of Battle? Because they're only strength 3, and they're 17 points a pop. So bringing 5 of them costs 85 points just for 5 strength 3 girls with power swords. Well, Sepharim can reroll charges, and they also reroll hits. Reroll wounds. So they're hitting on 3s, and at strength 3, they're typically wounding most things on 5s or more, but they're re-rolling wounds. 85 points. But with the Order of the Bloody Rose, these girls are dropping in, they're re-rolling charges, and they get +1 attack when they charge, and they add +1 AP when they charge. So they've got 3 attacks based on the charge. So 3 times 5, 15 attacks, hitting on 3s, at strength 3, re-rolling to wound, and those power swords will be AP -4 when they charge with the Order of the Bloody Rose. So there's only 5 of them. There's 15 attacks coming in here. You're not sending them after the Determinators. You're not sending them after things that are elite in your opponent's army that have a good invulnerable save. But they'll be chewing through troops units. They'll be chewing through. There'll be a good way to snipe out characters, find characters, and descend upon them. And adding Sepharim along with your Mortifiers and your Penitent Engines with the Order of the Bloody Rose is a good way to get an assault-based list together. Or one of the things you could do is have an order with all the shooty and all the horde, and then add a detachment, Order of the Bloody Rose, with your Penitent Engines and your Sepharim in them, and get close combat crazy with them, with that particular detachment. The Ebon Chalice, they are daughters of the Emperor. This is another order. When a model with this conviction would lose a wound as a result of a mortal wound, roll 1d6 on a 5 up. That mortal wound is not lost. In addition, when you would perform an act of faith for a model or a unit with this conviction, you can first discard 1 miracle dice. If you do so, 1 miracle dice you use in that act of faith is considered to be a 6. So ignoring mortal wounds on a 5 up, not great. Discarding miracle dice and getting auto 6s is good. But compared to the other orders, this is probably one that most people will put on a back burner. The Ardent Trout. When a unit with this conviction advances, it can fire ranged weapons as if it had moved without advancing. Again, compared to the Bloody Rose, which is an assault-based order, you're probably not going to pick the Ardent Trout. This is an assault-based order. This allows you to advance and fire as if you have moved without advancing. So it's a mixture. This is one that allows you to advance and shoot. You're going to be putting it on an assault list. Why wouldn't you just go to Bloody Rose? And then the Sacred Rose. When a morale test is taken for a unit with this conviction, no more than one model can flee. In addition, after you perform an act of faith for a model or a unit with this conviction, roll a d6, and on a 5-up, you gain a miracle dice back again. In addition, when you fire Overwatch, you hit like Tau. You hit on a 5 or 6. So, yeah, not losing models to morale, not great. Overwatch on a 5 or 6 is pretty good. But I think the standout ones are the Order of our Martyred Lady, the ability to get more miracle dice, Valorious Heart, the ability to be more resilient, and Bloody Rose, the ability to get very, very choppy and angry in close combat. So those are the orders. You get them in Sisters detachments. You gain miracle dice, and if your army only comes out of this codex, then you get sacred rites as well, which you're yelling and praying as you march into combat. You also have a Shield of Faith ability, 6-up invulnerable save, and you can also deny the witch on 1d6. That's what the Sisters do. Now, in this book, there are a number of HQ choices. We talked about the Canoness. She's only 45 points and gives you a reroll hit roll of 1. But you can give her a Brazier of Holy Fire, which you'll use against demons. It allows you to do mortal wounds to demons. And you can also give her a Null Rod. And a Null Rod means that she can't be targeted by psychic powers at all. And enemy psychics within 18 inches of her -1 to their psychic test or deny the witch test. So you can give her a Brazier for anti-demon stuff. You can give her a Null Rod for anti-psychic stuff. But what you are going to give her is her Rod of Office. And a Rod of Office gets her 6-inch aura, her reroll hit rolls of 1 aura, up to a 9-inch aura. And she's a base model of 45 points with no upgrades. And she becomes 50 points with a Rod of Office. So you're going to be taking it. Then in the troops choice, we have Celestine, the Triumph of St. Catherine, Junith Urthra, Missionary, and that's it. I'm not going to go into all the HQs because other reviewers, other bloggers out there have done it much better than me, and it makes this video forever. The one thing I will say is, though, I still like Saint Celestine. She's a mini Gulliman, jumping around all over the place. The ability to get back up again after she dies. Yes, she's a bit pricey at 160 points, but remember, she does have a 2-up save, a 4-up invulnerable save, and that ability to get back up again, that kicks off on a 2, not like a 4+ like it does for Gulliman. And also, she's a force multiplier. She's a character, so you can't target her, and any Adeptus Sororitas infantry models within 6 inches of her add 1 to their Shield of Faith ability. So basically, all Sisters within 6 inches have a 5-up invulnerable save, basically a Crux Terminatus or a demon save within 6 inches of St. Celestine for 160 points. For a fast, hard-hitting unit, I think she's a bit of a steal. And the model looks absolutely glorious, and I would definitely take her if I was running a Sisters army. The other good thing about a Sisters army, to be honest, is because the Canoness is so cheap at 45 points, it's easy to get double battalions in a Sisters list, or it's easy to get brigades. It's easy to get as many command points as you need. So I think we talked about Battle Sisters. You can bring them in squads of 5 to 15. You're probably going to be putting melt guns in every single Sister squad. A squad of 5 Sisters with a melt gun is 59 points, I believe. Yeah, 59 points for 5 girls with 1 melt gun. So having 6 squads of 5 girls with 1 melt gun in each is just over 350 points. 6 squads. Melt gun in every single one. You can put 2 of those in a Rhino or 2 of those in an Immolator. And it's a cheap way of getting up to brigade level stuff, or a cheap way of getting dual battalions, and having that sting in the tail, a melt gun every single, all over the place. Or you could go 354 points for, you could do 12 Battle Sisters squads with 5 girls melt gun, 5 girls melt gun, 5 girls melt gun for 700 odd points. and 6 rhinos and just go charge, go ham, go at your opponent and watch them blink. Yeah, that's the only troops choice they have, but it's cheap, hitting on 3s. Preachers, Gemini Superior, which follow Celestine around. Repenter Superior, Sisters Repenter, Celestine squads. Seraphim squads, we talked about them. The Dialogus, the Hospilia. Image of Fire, Crusaders. Crusaders are interesting. They're part of the Adeptus Ministorum. They're not technically men under arms, so the narrative squeaks around the edges of this as far as Sisters of Battle go, as far as the Adeptus Terra saying that the church can't have any men under arms. These are guys with 3-up invulnerable saves. They all have storm shields. They all have power swords. And so you've got units of up to 6. The unit comes in units of 2, and you can add up to 4. So you can have units of 6 Crusaders running around, units running around all over the place with 3-up invulnerable saves. Yes, they're only toughness 3 with 3-up invulnerable saves, but 3-up invulnerable saves are tough to shift. And they're only 13 points each. 13 points each. For a 3-up invulnerable save toughness 3 model that you can just sit on an objective somewhere, camp on an objective, or throw at an elite force that really wants to hit you, something with a high AP that wants to smash, like a monstrous creature, a dreadnought, or a demon, or something like that. Well, I don't care what the AP value of your attacks is. I will throw Crusaders in and they will lock their shields together. They don't take up a slot. If you bring a priest, then they ignore mortal wounds on a 5-up. So they're specifically designed to go throwing it. You throw them up against tyrannid monsters or monstrous creatures, psychers, things like that, demons, things like that. Lock them up and ignore the smites on a 5-up and tie them and make that demon fight through that 3-up invulnerable save. Crusaders are nice. Delve Cut Assassins and Arco-Flagellants are also very good. Arco-Flagellants, nasty as hell. Arco-Flagellants are also 13 points each. You can bring them in units of up to 10. So 10 of these guys, 110 points. Shove them in a rhino. They have got 2 wounds and a 7-up save. So they're not getting any saves unless they're in cover. That's why you're shoving them in a rhino. But they do ignore wounds on any wounds they take on a 5+. And they are toughness 3, 2 wounds, ignoring wounds on a 5+. So they're going to go down as soon as someone sneezes in their general direction. So you definitely shove in a rhino. But what they do is they hit like an absolute brick. They've got the zealot keyword, and the zealot keyword means that they're re-rolling all failed hits. They hit on 4s with 2 attacks, re-rolling all failed hits. But their Arco Flails, you get D3 hit rolls for each attack made by this weapon instead of 1. So a unit of 10... Each Arco-Flagellant has 2 attacks, so that is 2d3 per Arco-Flagellant. A unit of 10 has 20 times d3, strength 5, -1, 1 damage attack, re-rolling hits. For 13 wounds each, yeah, get a couple of these guys, stick them in a rhino with a cattle prod, slam the door shut, weld it shut, throw it forward at the enemy, and that's a living bomb that they have to deal with. They are from the Adeptus Ministorum. They're not battle sisters, so they won't get access to the order convictions. You can't put bloody rows on these guys to make them more brutal. But at 13 points each, yeah, I'd take a couple of them. We have Dominion squads and Seraphim. We've seen these guys before. Dominions are your specialist weapon girls, the girls with the 4 melters popping around all over the place. Or you could stick a unit of 5 of these on objectives somewhere at the back in cover with a 2-up save, particularly if you're running the Order of the Valorious Heart, so that they ignore AP -1 or AP -2. The order that allows you to be a bit more resilient. You could put a unit of 5 of these guys with Stormbolters. They're quite cheap that way, 58 points for a unit of 5 back on an objective somewhere, and give all 4 of them Stormbolters. But people typically do run units of 5 with 4 melt guns and just shove them forward. They have the scout ability so that they can have an additional move before the game begins, but it doesn't transfer across to the vehicle. Seraphim, Mortifiers, Retribution Squad are the equivalent. So you've got battle sisters, basically, big squads of sisters. Then you've got Dominions and Retributors. The minions are the ones that can take special weapons like Stormbolters, Melt Guns. Retributors are the ones that can take heavy weapons, and essentially you're looking at heavy bolters, heavy flamers, and multi-melters. And most of the time you're probably picking heavy bolters and multi-melters and leaving these girls at the back, but they're a bit more expensive. And why would you ever pick Retributors in the heavy slot when you have the Exorcist? The Exorcist is brutal. 170 points with the heavy bolter and the Exorcist Launcher. It's expensive. Why is it expensive at 170 points? Well, it's toughness 8 with 12 wounds and a 3-up save, so it's pretty resilient. That toughness 8 is a kicker. 170 points. Also put a Canoness back there for 45 points, so you're re-rolling hit rolls of 1. And the Exorcist Launcher is 3d3 strength 8 minus 3d6 damage, and that is crazy. Minimum 3 shots, maximum 9 shots at strength 8 minus 3 d6 damage a time. So 3 Exorcists in the backfield with a Canoness is 555 points. You're going to give the Canoness the right of office, so our range goes up to 9 inches. 560 points. 3 Exorcists. Hitting on 3s, re-rolling the 1s, 560 points. That will be chucking out 6 to 27 shots a turn. It's at strength 8, minus 3, d6 damage. Seems pricey at 170 points, but the amount of firepower these guys can throw downstream is just brutal. You're going to see 3 of them in every Sisters list because they're that good. And also, one of the reasons why you're going to see 3 of them in every Sisters list, to be fair, is because I think it's the only thing in the Sisters book that has got a 48-inch range. So it's got reliable shooting from turn 1. Of course, if it moves, it'll be hitting on 4s because this is a heavy gun. But it has got a 6-up invulnerable save, and if you give it the Valorious Heart, it can ignore damage coming through to it. On a 6-up, every wound it loses. On 6s, it'll ignore those wounds. But yeah, 560 points is a very good core for any Sisters force. We talked about Mortifiers and Penitent Engines. Rhinos are Rhinos. And then we have the Emulators in here. Emulators are like Rhinos, but they come with 2 heavy flamers. Yeah, you can put 2 multi-melters on them, but you're bringing 2 immolation flamers, because immolation flamers are 12-inch range, assault, 2d6, strength 5, minus 1, 1 damage. And yeah, it means that when they get charged, you're always getting those hits. They are 110 points with the flamers on top because their heavy bolter comes as standard. It's a bit pricey, 110 points for something that can transport only 6 units. 120 points if you put the twin multi-melter on there. So I guess there is an argument to having a couple of these toughness 7-10 wound tanks with twin multi-melters on, scattered here, scattered there. But 120 points, there's probably a better way of doing it. That anti-armor. See, the reason why you probably wouldn't bring twin emulators with twin multi-melters is because your Sisters of Battle Squads should have melters, from my point of view, should have melters sprinkled in amongst them anyway. So you should have the ability to melt vehicles here, there, and everywhere in your list if I was doing it. 110 points for the emulators. If I was building a Sisters list, I would probably start somewhere in the region of 40 to 60 Sisters and 4 or 6 Rhinos and leave the Emulators at home. Then I'd bring the triple Exorcists with a Canoness in the backfield, and then I'd bring the 6 Penitent Engines or Mortifiers, and you've still got a good couple of 100 points left over if you want to add Celestine or some Seraphim or some Seraphim. So if I was starting a Sisters army, I'd start with a good core which I could build on or modify or play around with. But a strong core would be Celestine and a Canoness and the 3 Exorcists. Celestine is not automatic. You could just get 2 Canonesses and 3 Exorcists. But I like Celestine. She looks cool and she's a living saint. So if I was doing Sisters, she'd be in there. And that's a good start. I'd also start off with 3 Rhinos and 6 units of 5 Sisters with a melt gun in each. And then I'd get 6 Penitent Engines or 6 Mortifiers. And that's a good core to start with. You can then either add more Horde or add more Daka. You could then add more aggression and with Seraphim and Zephyrim. or you could add more vehicles. But just that core is 1,611 points, and it's for me it would be a good foundation from which to build on. And there's nothing in there in particular when you look at it that's weak. And when you add on Sacred Rites, when you add on Miracle Dice, when you add on Order Convictions, it would have a punch. I'd run it a Valorious Heart to start off with, so that I could get used to how my army functions and how I play with the army. The ability to 6-up Shrug Wounds and ignore AP modifiers of 1 or 2. Yeah, so I'd probably put an Imagifier or 2 in there as well, because I'd be running Valorious Heart. Get up to about 1,700 points, and that's how I would start. After that big dirge, we have Stratagems, and we have Warlord Traits, and of course and relics. We don't have any psychic powers in here because sisters abhor the witch and want to burn them. So because the Stratagems, Warlord Traits, relics have been covered by other publications out there, other YouTubers out there, initially I thought, well, I won't go through them all, because those people who really want to see what these things do and how they are, then they can go to those other YouTubers and things. But what I think I'll do for the purposes of completion is I'll just talk through every single one. So grab a cup of tea and listen to me chant a mantra. So Stratagems 1, open the reliquies. Use this stratagem before the battle. Your army can have 1 additional relic. 1 CP, Embodied Prophecy. Use this stratagem at the start of the fight phase to select 1 Seraphim squad. That's that elite close combat jumpy sisters squad from your army until the end of that phase. When resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by a model in a friendly Adeptus Sororitas unit within 6 inches of the Seraphim's unit, reroll wound rolls of 1. Furious Recital. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase. When an Exorcist model from your army is chosen to shoot with, until the end of the turn, subtract 1 from the leadership characteristic of models in enemy units whilst their unit is within 12 inches of that Exorcist model. It's 1 CP. Blazing Piety. 1 CP. Use this stratagem at the start of your psychic phase. Select 1 enemy chaos unit within 6 inches of a Dialogist model. That enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. If that enemy unit is a demon, it suffers D3 mortal wounds. 1 CP, Battle Rites. Use this stratagem at the start of the battle round if your Warlord has the Sacred Rites ability and is on the battlefield. Select 1 active Sacred Rite, roll a d6 to randomly generate a new Sacred Rite. You may re-roll this result if the new Sacred Rite is the same. The selected Sacred Rite is no longer active and the new Sacred Rite is now active. That's nice. Changing the Sacred Rites mid-battle. Random though. Moment of Grace. Use this stratagem after making a hit or wound roll for an attack made by an Adeptus Sororitas model from your army. After making a saving throw for an Adeptus Sororitas model from your army, discard 1 to 3 miracle dice. Add 1 to the result of the roll for each miracle dice you discarded. 1 minute. After making a hit or a wound roll, discard 1 to 3 miracle dice and add 1 to the result for each miracle dice you result. Okay, so you roll to hit or roll to wound, chuck a miracle dice away. Say it's a miracle dice, there's a 2 in your hand and you don't want to use it. You can chuck that 1 away and then change that result because you rolled a 2, change it to a 3. I get it. Final Redemption. Use this stratagem when a Sister's Repentant unit from your army is chosen as the target for an attack made with a melee weapon. Until the end of that phase, roll 1d6 when a model in that unit is destroyed as the result of an attack made by a melee weapon. On a 4+, the enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound after it has fought. 4 up to mortal wounds back again. 1 CP. 1 CP, Martyr's Immolation. Use this stratagem when an Immolator model from your army is destroyed. Don't roll the dice, it blows up. 1 CP, Holy Trinity. Use this stratagem in the shooting phase after you've declared how you will split the shots for an Adeptus Sororitas unit from your army. If that unit shoots all of its weapons at the same target, and the target is within range of at least 1 bolt weapon, 1 flame weapon, and 1 metal weapon, until the end of that phase, when resolving an attack made by a model in that unit, add 1 to the wound roll. We saw that in the chapter approved, and that one's glorious. It's only 1 CP, so Stormbolter, Flamer, Melter, add 1 to the wound roll. It's like, what's it called? Veterans of the Long War for a CP. but you've got to put everything into the same unit. I like it. Heroine in the making. Use this stratagem before the battle. After nominating your Warlord, select another character and generate a Warlord trait for it. Divine Intervention, 2 CP. Use this stratagem when an Adeptus Sororitas character model, other than Celestine, generally superior, other than a chunk of these things listed, from your army is destroyed. Before any miracle dice are gained as a result, discard 1 to 3 miracle dice at the end of the phase. Return that model to play with the number of wounds remaining equal to the number of miracle dice you discarded. For 2 CP, if someone's killed your Warlord, chuck away 1 to 3 miracle dice and return your Warlord to the table with 1 to 3 wounds remaining, or any character that's not a named character. What a glorious stratagem. 1 CP, Holy Rage. Use this stratagem at the start of your charge phase. Select an Adeptus Sororitas unit from your army. That unit can charge, even if it advanced. That's good. I'm thinking of Penitent Engines and Mortifiers. Faith and Fury. Use the stratagem after you perform an act of faith. For a hit roll, you can reuse the same miracle dice for the wound roll for that attack. 2 CP. That's very powerful. Say you rolled a 6 to hit because you're hitting a flyer, and you want to use, I don't know, 2 CP for a 6 to wound. Maybe. If it was a 6 to damage, that'd be better. 1 CP, Martyred. Use the stratagem at the end of any phase in which your Warlord was destroyed. If your Warlord is an Adeptus Sororitas character model. If your Warlord is Celestine, perform any rolls for the model's miraculous intervention ability before using this stratagem. This stratagem may not be used if your Warlord is returned to the battlefield using the miraculous intervention ability or the divine intervention stratagem. You gain D3 command points. So for 1 CP, when your Warlord is killed, if you don't want to bring him back, gain D3 command points. 1 CP, Venerated Saint. Use the stratagem during deployment. After you've set up an Imagifier model from your army, you can select 2 different tails for that model's litany deeds instead of 1. 1 CP, Suffer Not the Witch. Use this stratagem at the start of the shooting or fight phase. Select an Adeptus Sororitas unit from your army until the end of that phase. When resolving an attack made by a model in that unit against a Psyche unit, you can re-roll the wound rolls. Shooting at Psychers, re-roll wound. That's nice. Killing Eldar, killing Tyranids, killing demons. 2 CP, Storm of Retribution. Use this stratagem when a Retributor squad from your unit of army fires Overwatch or is chosen to shoot with. Select one of the following. Till the end of the phase, when resolving an attack made with a heavy bolter by a model in that unit, add 1 to the hit roll. Or until the end of the phase, when resolving an attack made with a heavy flamer by a model in that unit, you can re-roll the wound roll. Or until the end of that phase, add 12 inches to the range characteristics of multi-melters in that unit. And when resolving an attack made with a multi-melter by a model in that unit, add 1 to the damage roll. Really, for 2 CP, you've got a 36-inch range multi-melter and adding 1 to the damage roll. It's nasty. Last rites. Use this stratagem at the start of a morale phase. Select 1 Hospitalia model from your army, and until the end of that phase, when a morale test is taken for a friendly Adeptus or Rites unit within 6 inches of that model, do not add the number of models from that unit that have been destroyed that turn. 1 CP. Devastating Refrain. 1 CP. Use this stratagem when an Exorcist model from your unit fires Overwatch or is chosen to shoot with. Until the end of the phase, you can re-roll any or all of the dice rolled to determine the type characteristic of an Exorcist missile launcher or an Exorcist conflagration rockets that model is equipped with. I should mention at this stage that there's a different type of Exorcist missile that you can fire, which is a Horde Killer, instead of the standard strength 8 -3 d6 damage weapon. I'm just mentioning it for the sake of being thorough, because no one's ever going to bring it. But Devastating Refrain, 1 CP for that. That's beautiful. Deadly Descent, 1 CP. Use this stratagem after a Seraphim squad from your army has been set up high in the sky. Until the end of that phase, add 6-inch range. 6 inch to the range characteristics of pistol weapons. So that's that one when they jump in with their hand flamers. They can shoot as if it was the shooting phase, it says as well. As soon as they land, they shoot as if it was the shooting phase in the movement phase with their hand flamers, with their pistols. And then you move on after the movement phase to shooting phase, and they get to do it all over again. It's like Deathwing Assault. Vessel of the Emperor's Will for 1 CP. Use this stratagem after you perform an act of faith for an Adeptus or Rites character. from your army, gain a miracle dice. After you perform an act of faith, gain a miracle dice. So you spend a miracle dice and just get one back again. Basically switching a CP for a miracle dice. That's useful, I guess. Test of faith. Use the stratagem at the end of any phase in which you've gained a miracle dice. Gain D3 miracle dice. 2 CP, exceptional proficiency. Use the stratagem when a Celestian squad from your army fires Overwatch or is choosing to shoot or fight with until the end of the phase. When resolving an attack made by a model in that unit, you can re-roll the hit roll, and you can re-roll the wound roll. Blessed Bolts. It only costs 1 CP, and Stormbolt has become AP -2 and damage 2 for any Sororitas infantry unit. AP -2, damage 2 Stormbolters are beautiful. So we're going to see some Dominion squads out there, because Dominion squads can, you can have 4 Stormbolters in a squad of Dominions. And it's only 1 CP. Purity of Faith for 1 CP, you can deny the witch on a 4 up. Judgment of the Faithful allows you to fall back and shoot and charge. And it's 2 CP. So if someone ties up an Exorcist or a Dominion squad for 2 CP, which is pricier than some of these stratagems that we've seen that allow you to still fall back and charge, but at least you have a stratagem which allows you to do it. Judgment of the Faithful. Extremist trigger words helps Arcoflagellates. Desperate for a redemption is 3 CP. Use this stratagem at the end of the fight phase. Select 1 Penitent Engine Mortifier or Sisters Repentia unit from your army within 1 inch of an enemy unit. That our unit can now fight as if it was the fight phase. So it's 3 CP. You've gone charging in there with your Penitent Engine or Mortifiers, and you've killed a chunk of stuff, and it's still alive. And then you get to the opponent's fight phase, and for 3 CP, you can fight. So, yeah, as if it was the fight phase. Well, no, at the end of the fight phase. At the end of the fight phase, 3 CPs. Fight again. 3 CP, fight again, sorry. 1 CP, Honor the Martyrs. Use this stratagem when an Order of our Martyred Lady character model from your army is destroyed as a result of an attack made by an enemy unit until the end of the battle. When resolving an attack made by a model in the Order of our Martyred Lady's unit from your army against that enemy unit, re-roll hit rolls of 1. And then there's 5 more. 1 for the Valorious Heart, 1 for the Order of the Bloody Rose, 1 for the Order of the Ebon Chalice, 1 for the Order of the Ancient Shroud, and 1 for the Order of the Sacred Rose. And as they're specific to orders, I won't go through every single one of them. Warlord Traits, we have add 1 to this Warlord's leadership characteristic. Righteous Rage, we have when making a charge roll for the Warlord, you can re-roll any of all of the dice. Executioner of Heretics, subtract 1 from the leadership characteristics of enemy units within 6 inches. Beacon of Faith, at the start of your turn, if this Warlord is on the battlefield, gain a miracle dice. That's nice. Indomitable Belief, the invulnerable save of friendly infantry models received from the Shield of Faith ability is improved by 1 to a maximum of 4+, whilst their unit is within 6 inches of their Warlord. Give the Warlord your rod, that Canoness, give her the rod for 5 points, and that her aura ability will get out to 9 inches there, +1 to the invulnerable save. That's going to be the goer, I think, go 2-1. Pure of Will, this Warlord can attempt to deny 1 additional psychic power in your opponent's psychic phase. As described in the Shield of Faith ability, subtract 1 for psychic tests taken for enemy models whilst they're within 12 inches of the Warlord. Then there's the 6 specific Warlord traits for the orders, and then there's a chunk of relics in here. Yeah, other people would have covered these relics. I'm not going to go through them all. It makes this review very, very long, and I'm much more interested in talking about how they function, how they feel on the battle grid, and what units are good, what units are not so good. So I hopefully have given you the flavour and feel of the Adeptus Sororitas book here. Thank you, Games Workshop, for sending it through to me one more time. Happy wargaming.